Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Thank friggin' goodness we got a trilogy coming our way this year and forevermore. Kicking off this Thursday night from Suncorp Stadium for the first time in Women's State of Origin history, we're going to have ourselves 3 contests to decide the winner from 2024 onwards forevermore. On Bluebet, I was able to find Queensland. They are the $1.58 favourites. New South Wales, they're sitting around that $2.30 margin, and the line is set at 3.5. Let's go into the women's team now for Queensland, and in at fullback, Tamika Upton, Robinson and Bass are the wingers. Shisoka and Polite are the centres. Halves, Aiken and Temera. The forward pack, Marto, Brill and Elliston. The back row, Gray, Teitzel and Brickenshaw, who is the captain. And then the interchange, Mantleman, Hollyman, Brown, and originally it was named to be Keely Joseph, but she has unfortunately succumbed to a MCL injury that was sustained throughout the training camp, unfortunately. So what that means is that Miss Mackenzie Wheel will come in to the interchange and she will make her Queensland Origin debut on Thursday night. Shifting into the New South Wales team, and at fullback, Emma Tonegado, and her wingers, Chapman and Penatani. The centres, Surgis and New South Wales captain, Isabel Kelly. The halves pairing, maybe the most controversial point of discussion throughout both of these teams over the past week or so. We've got Rachel Pearson at halfback. Corbin Baxter will be the 5'8". The forward pack for the Blues is Elliott, Higgins, who makes her Origin debut, and Caitlin Johnston. The back row, Apps, Clydesdale and Davis. The interchange, Fuimayano, Kernick, Grace Kemp, who makes her debut, and Sarah Togatuki. And the 18th woman for both of these sides respectively, Sienna Lafipo, Skylar Adams, they are 18 and 19. And for the reserves for the Sky Blues, Jakaya Whitfeld, Kira Dibb and Ellie Johnston. This is going to be the biggest Women's State of Origin series in history to date, at the very least. And to help on to that fact is that these two teams are going to clash at the biggest venue, stadium that they've ever fought against each other at. It's going to be at Suncorp Stadium out there at Lang Park. So a huge occasion for both of these teams. Last year, we got that 2-match series. Thank goodness we've catapulted that into the sun. It was a win apiece. But it was Queensland who won on aggregate. Oh man, that feels so dirty to say. I hate friggin' reminding myself of that fact that Queensland won by an aggregate, but it was the Sky Blues who won the second game in Townsville. And speaking of the second game in Townsville, that was the Sky Blues' first victory in Queensland since the year 2016. So they got a bit of a monkey off the back, and now it just levels up for them. The Women's State of Origin just continues to level up, and now they find themselves facing the Queenslanders out at Suncorp Stadium this Thursday night. Unreal, man. Congratulations to everyone involved making this now a 3-game series, bro. It's absolutely sensational. But since we are sticking on the subject of head-to-head, since 1999, the Queensland Maroons have dominated the New South Wales Sky Blues. From 99 through to 2014, they won every single match. There were a couple of other 2-game series in between amongst 99 and 2014, and it was a 21-game winning streak for the Maroons. And the breakthrough for the Sky Blues came in 2015 when a draw occurred. Now, in 2018, it was officially recognised as a State of Origin match or a State of Origin series by the NRL, by everybody. Before that, it was known as the Interstate Challenge. So since 2018, Since it was branded officially State of Origin, Women's State of Origin, the Sky Blues have actually got their nose in front in the match head-to-head record, 4 wins to 3 to the Sky Blues, but the series victories stand at 3 wins apiece since 2018, and the Sky Blues have their nose in front just because of that 2 freaking game series last year. Yet, what kept Queensland in that game, in game number 2, up in Townsville that night, was not Tasman Gray anymore, but Tasman Rapana was punching holes through brick friggin' walls that night. She was an absolute menace, and we're going to get into it in just a moment, but she was giving Jessie Southwell all sorts of nightmares that evening. So that's a huge component as to why Queensland got really close to them. It was 3 tries apiece, and it was just goal kicking that was the difference that led to that Sky Blues victory up at QCB Stadium. While we're here talking about last season, game number 1, it was infamously quoted by the likes of Millie Elliott and a plethora of others, but Elliott was really the spearhead that came out and said we were embarrassed by the effort that we put in. We know, or now we know, we all know that Queensland were just as embarrassed by the effort that they put in last year as a spectacle. They all felt like, or a majority felt like, that they failed to live up to expectations, and yeah, that really burned inside of them, and we got a cracking game in game number 2 because of it. But in that game, the biggest flashpoint came when it was Julia Robinson who forearmed Isabel Kelly in the throat, and the poor bugger went to hospital and didn't sit out game number 2, surprisingly, but she had to sit in hospital for, I think it was a week, maybe just under a week, and that was terrifying scenes. I just rewatched some highlights of that game, and seeing Isabel Kelly act the way that she did was terrifying, and it set the scene up beautifully for her to go absolutely insane, but she couldn't have done it without her helping lady in Emma Tonegato, who ran buck wild that night up there in Townsville. The other point to mention with what occurred in game number 1 was on the day, if not, it was the day before, Tiana Penitani went down with injury. I can't remember what it was, but Tiana Penitani went down with injury on the day or the day before, and that meant that Jessica Sturgis had to play out on the wing, and it was Talia Fuimaono that had to come in and play in the centre position. She's a capable utility player. She's very, very capable. She's represented the Jillaroos, very capable of defending at centre, but it just threw them all out of whack, just about, especially when Kelly went down, and then it was the likes of the Julia Robinsons and the Shanae Shizolkas that capitalised on Kelly not being there. Meanwhile, on the other side of the paddock, Talia Fuimaono and Jessica Sturgis were sort of, you know, a little bit, whoa, what's happening here? Because Tiana Penitani went down with injury. We're shifting to game number 2. Tiana Penitani's back. Isabel Kelly is back for blood. But it was Julia Robinson that was missing from that game in game number 2 due to suspension. And Kelly and Penitani and Tonegato destroyed that left edge, unfortunately for Queenslanders, with all due respect as well. Shizolka had a night. China Pilata's debut in State of Origin couldn't have been any tougher. She held her own for a few carries here or there, but Isabel Kelly and Penitani and Tonegato just were absolutely in Terminator mode that night. Yet, what kept Queensland in that game, in game number 2, up in Townsville that night, was not Tasman Gray anymore, but Tasman Rapana was punching holes through brick friggin' walls that night. She was an absolute menace, and we're going to get into it in just a moment, but she was giving Jessie Southwell all sorts of nightmares that evening. So that's a huge component as to why Queensland got really close to them. It was 3 tries apiece, and it was just goal kicking that was the difference that led to that Sky Blues victory up at QCB Stadium. Speaking of Southwell, or the Southwell sisters, if you want to get a little bit more particular, let's talk about some of the omissions or controversial outs for both of these sides? Well, as a matter of fact, I'd say 98% of it is veered. The spotlight is veered towards the New South Wales Sky Blues side. And so quickly, Queensland, I think maybe the only name that could have punched her way into that Maroons side would have been Bree Clark. She's had a huge Queensland Cup so far, and or did. I think that season did come to an end. But I think maybe Bree Clark was the only name that really could have fought her way into that 1-17. Still potentially could. For the New South Wales team, let's back the truck up. So we've got the Southwell sisters who have controversially been omitted. Samaima Taufa, not included. Tegan Berry, that sent a huge uproar amongst the NRLW community. And Kennedy Cherrington as well, again, very loud. And we've got Shaylee Bent, Quincy Dodd, and Brooke Anderson as well. In game number 1, there were 22 missed tackles from both teams. In game number 2, there was 50 missed tackles for the Maroons and only approximately 20 for the New South Wales Sky Blues. So yes, Tonegata and that edge went berserk as well, but I think Fuimaono and Jesse Southwell, I'm going to say, must have worked well, because I can't quite remember how they did go as a halves pairing. I'm yet to, or I haven't rewatched that game number 2. Also, to add to that, Queensland won the kicking meter department in both of those games. So even with, or maybe without, Jesse Southwell, maybe their kicking did lack a little bit. And with Corbin Baxter in there with a little bit more experience, even though I'm buggered if I can recall her kicking game, Corbin Baxter and Rachel Pearson, it's definitely the most controversial selections in game number 1 for this State of Origin series as well. But seriously, the matchup to look forward to is going to be Julia Robinson versus Isabel Kelly, or Penatani versus Julia Robinson. That one-on-one matchup, that head-to-head matchup, did not occur last season. Obviously, both of their inside women in Shanae Shizolka and Isabel Kelly, they're all going to come at each other diagonally or straight on. And that was really the key to it all last year. In game number 1, Kelly went down, Penatani went down, and that left edge for Sky Blues allowed Julia Robinson, well, not allowed, but allowed Shizolka and Robinson to go absolutely berserk. And then in game number 2, Robinson was suspended, so poor China Palata had a tough initiation, and it was Kelly and Penatani that went berserk. So this left edge for the Sky Blues offensively versus the right edge offensively for the Queensland Maroons, it's huge. It's pretty much what decided the series last year. And now they got 3 games to fight each other over it. So I'm really looking forward to it. And to add on to Julia Robinson's first game performance, she had 2 tries, 3 line breaks, 12 runs for 126 meters, and 7 tackle breaks as well. So Julia Robinson was huge. Lauren Brown, she returns to the Origin Arena for the first time since 2022. She missed out last season. I think she had an injury, I'm not sure. It's a new looking bench. So Hollyman, Wheel, Brown, and Manselman. Manselman got 2 games under her belt, but Wheel's debuting, Brown's returning, and Sophie Hollyman did her thing last year. So it's just thinking about it now, I guess it is it's a fresh, younger looking bench. And then going over to the New South Wales side as well, they are definitely the bigger pack for sure, with all due respect to the likes of Shannon Marto and Jess Elliston and Tasman Rapiner, obviously. Congratulations to Tasman Rapiner, who is going to be playing her 10th State of Origin, so that's a sensational milestone. So well done to her. Now shifting into the Sky Blues, and I do think that they are operating with the bigger forward pack, at least for game 1 anyway. Millie Elliott, of course, a superstar, but then Caitlin Johnston, she returns into the Origin Arena after not participating last year due to an injury. I don't know, I'm feeling it in my bones, man, that she is in for a huge year, not just in the Origin, but for the Newcastle Knights as well. I think she's primed up for something. And then Olivia Higgins debuts for the Sky Blues in the starting hooker position. And then the back row, Kezzy Apps starting in the second row position instead of playing front row like she did last year in the Origin series. Yasmin Clydesdale, always reliable. I was thinking about Kezzy Apps and Clydesdales, and goodness gracious, because also Keely Davis, Kezzy Apps' Clydesdale's mate up in Queensland Cup BMD Premiership, she's playing in the lock position. And then coming off the bench, you've got Olivia Koenig, and you have the debutante Grace Kemp as well. Sarah Togatuki, only the Dalian Ford of 2023 as well. Yeah, they're operating with a fearsome forward pack, the Sky Blues, on Thursday night for sure. And just while I'm thinking about it, the Queensland Cup has just finished its regular season. Finals footy is happening this weekend, and it's been interesting to see the likes of the Kezzy Apps and the Keely Davises, the Southwell sisters, Jamie Chapman. She did things with Tweed before, but yeah, it was interesting to see a good, strong handful of ladies coming from New South Wales to come play in the best women's rugby league competition, or second grade competition on the planet, not New South Wales Cup. But the fear for me, and the reason why I am doubting the New South Wales Sky Blues, is that you have the likes of Jessica Surgis and Caitlin Johnston. You've got a plethora of players for that Sky Blues, except for Kezzy Apps and Keely Davis and Jamie Chapman and Olivia Koenig. You've got 4 Sky Blues there that have played a game of footy, that have played a couple of games in the BMD Premiership this season. And the Queensland Maroons side, they've all had at least the one game. They've all had 3 or 4 games, and they're coming into this game with no footy rust on them. So the likes of the people that I've just mentioned in Tonegado and Surgis and Caitlin Johnston and Millie Elliott, I mean, they're going to be super rusty, man. It's been a really fun premiership or season in the BMD Premiership, so I really don't know how they're going to go in this game. So while I'm looking at the forward pack for the Sky Blues, I think, obviously their backline is sensational in its own right, but I do think that forward pack might be their strength. I think the Maroons backline is just a touch better. I mean, it's Tamika Upton. She's the best female rugby league talent on the effing planet at the moment, so they're always going to be a huge sniff. I'm very weary about the Sky Blues. I'm trying to be as respectful and not as biased as possible, but I just cannot help myself. I, honest to goodness, do think that the match fitness is going to be a hell of a difference. And I do think the Queensland Maroons Women's State of Origin team are going to be so hell-bent on winning that first ever game at Suncorp Stadium. Because can you imagine the Sky Blues forevermore turning to the Maroon side and reminding them who won the first ever game, the first ever Women's State of Origin game at Suncorp Stadium? It was us. I do not think that is going to happen. I don't reckon they will allow it to happen. I'm going to tip the Queensland Maroons to win this game, but with the Sky Blues being at $2.30, I do think that might be a little bit too far out. And I think you can find, or no, I don't think you can find those odds. You can have a bet and obviously gamble responsibly. You can have a punt on bluebet.com.au. That's where you can find those odds. But again, gamble responsibly. But I think $2.30 with the line being 3.5. Gee whiz, there's a lot of meat on that bone if I'm showing me punting mouse from underneath. So, thank you very much for tuning in for the Game 1 preview for the Women's State of Origin contest. And yeah, I'll get around to the men's when it does come around, and I'll obviously preview the women as well, but for the rest of the trilogy as well. So really looking forward to it. I've got my ticket. I'll be there. It's going to be a sensational game. I do think the weather is going to be crystal clear. It's going to be crisp for us as well on Thursday. None of this friggin' rain. So come on, you Queensland Maroons, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.